In today's video, we're going to talk about whether or not you should buy AMD before they report earnings after the market closes tomorrow. Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at some of the partnerships that AMD has. We're going to look at their fundamentals and what their projections are. And we're just going to dive deeper into, what the growth opportunity is for AMD to ultimately try to decide whether or not it is or is not a good idea to buy this stock before earnings. And as always, we're going to look at some of the technicals as well, and I'll go over some key levels that I'm keeping my eyes on. But with that being said, before we get started, I want to mention, right, anytime there's earnings, in my opinion, I hardly ever really recommend buying a stock before earnings unless your goal is to truly buy and hold that stock for a really long time, right? And that's just because it's just a 50% chance of whether or not AMD goes higher or lower, truly. They could come out and beat everything. They could raise their expectations. They could blow it out of the water, and the stock could still go down because investors will find the one little thing to nitpick, right? And the fact that AMD stock has seen so much, upward price pressure, right? I mean, the stock has been, it's up substantially, right? We're going to look at the charts, but it's up a lot. It's been a rocket ship up, like seriously. And so the stock is, in my opinion, pricing in a lot of these partnerships and a lot of, this bullish news that has been coming out. And so is it going to be like kind of sell the news event, right? Where they come out and they kind of say, hey, we got these partnerships, but, we're expecting to make this much money, but it's going to take some time, right? And if that's the case, I don't know. I could see the stock possibly going down, vice versa. They could come out and say, and Lisa Su mentioned this, that the OpenAI deal could make them tens of billions of dollars, right? Reminds me of Trump. But that's a lot of money, right? And tens of billions, I don't know. That could be 99 billion. It could be, 12 billion. Like, what is that number? And that's what we don't know yet, right? So we are kind of driving blind right now. And so, again, the one thing I'm just going to tell you up front, right? Before we jump into this, what I do not recommend doing, this is not financial advice. You do whatever you want. You're the only one that can make the decision at the end of the day whether or not it's a good idea to buy AMD before earnings. But don't go buy some short-dated call options, that are some YOLOs, just hoping and praying that AMD goes up, because hoping is not a strategy. It's not a way to trade. And I'm not going to lie. Yes, you could be right and you can make a ton of money. And you could be wrong, you could lose a ton of money. I guess it's the best way to put it, right? If you do decide to take that trade and do some YOLO call options, just be willing and okay to lose all that money. God forbid the price does go down on the stock. But with that being said, let's go ahead and look at some of the partnerships that AMD has established over the years. It's pretty impressive, and there's a lot of reasons to be bullish on this company in the long term, right? So, look, check this out. We have AMD when it comes to their AI partnerships, right? We have the OpenAI deal. We have a partnership with Microsoft, the U.S. Department of Energy. We have Oracle, Meta, and IBM. These are big companies, man. Like, this is not, little fish that we're frying here. All right, moving on. Let's see. So, the cloud service, that's another part of their revenue stream right now. They've just locked in deals with Amazon or AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft, again, with their cloud computing, I guess, and then data center OEM partners like Dell, HPE, Supermicro, Cisco. Again, pretty impressive, right? Moving on. So obviously a segment of their business that hasn't been doing so well lately is their gaming, right? But we got to keep this in mind because this has been struggling, and that's actually been pulling down AMD's revenues, right? Not by a lot, because the cloud computing, or the data centers, are just, their growing revenues crazy. We're going to take a look at it, but nonetheless, right? This can be a big tailwind when that turns around, and I do think it's a matter of time, right? When you have the PC upgrading cycle where everyone is going to go and buy new PCs. It's just a matter of time, right? Where your computers just kind of get old and outdated. They don't work as well, and you go buy a new one. But again, with that being said, they have partnerships with, Dell, HP, Apple. When it comes to like gaming consoles, your PlayStations and your Xbox, right? Like PlayStation's going to be coming out with a PlayStation 6 soon, I'm sure, and Xbox going to be coming out with a new Xbox, and they're always a pretty big hit, and that's going to generate a lot of income. Now, those are very cyclical, segments in the company, though, right? Like, they're down now. There will be a time when they're up substantially, in my opinion, but then they'll be down again, right? Again, it could be a very big tailwind for a company that's already seeing some pretty massive revenue growth. All right, so with that being said, I just wanted to jump into a few things. This is from their last earnings report, right? And if you guys like content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will be doing another in-depth video on AMD after they report earnings to kind of digest everything, that they talk about. So if that's something that you might be interested in, please stay tuned for that. But I just want to point out a few things, right? So we have, they keep growing their chips, right? And their biggest thing before, right, was like, hey, you can't compete with Nvidia. And okay, you still probably can't compete with Nvidia, but there's rumors coming out saying that, hey, these chips that, AMD is selling now, like, they're competing with Nvidia's chips, right? And one of those is the MI, 300. It's been doing really well, but the best part about it is that they're actually coming out with an MI 400 already, which is apparently supposed to be, I believe I saw reports, and again, this was a little while ago, so don't mark my words on this, but it was going to be competing with Nvidia's highest speed chip, right? Or it was possibly even faster. But nonetheless, there is a ton of market share to capture here, and AMD, all they have to do is offer a product that is very good still, right? It doesn't have to be the best, but very good. And there will be a lot of companies that use AMD as a second alternative. Plus, everyone wants to be diverse. Like, no one wants to have all their eggs in one basket. Like, that means that Nvidia can just charge whatever the hell they want, which they've been doing, right? And then the companies are losing, right? Nonetheless, though, that's one thing I want to keep my eyes on in their upcoming earnings report is, when is that MI 400 coming out? Because that's supposed to be, again, competing very highly with Nvidia's chips. So I just pulled that slide up to mention the chips, right? The MI 300 that they have, and they're coming out with the MI 400 that's supposed to hit the market in 2026. So, once again, that's one thing I really want to keep my eyes on, because that could drive a lot of revenue, especially if it's competing with Nvidia's chips, right? Another thing to keep in mind too, as we jump into the fundamentals here, taking a look at the bigger picture, is just the fact that we just had the Mag 7, or most of them, report earnings, right? And they all came out, I'm pretty sure they all raised their CapEx expenditure, right? Which literally will go straight to AMD and Nvidia and into their chips and data centers. Like this is like, anytime those companies come out saying that they're raising their CapEx, that's like an injection into Nvidia and AMD. It's like, yes, you guys are planning on spending another $66 billion with us next year, right? And Nvidia is getting a big chunk of that, obviously. But again, we do all believe that AMD is really going to start eating into that market share, and they don't need to eat into a big portion of it. They just need a little bit of it. Again, I wanted to mention that because these companies did come out and they are all raising their CapEx expenditure. So that, again, is very bullish for AMD, at least in the short term. Now, vice versa, when these companies start coming out saying, hey, okay, like, enough's enough, like, we're going to start lowering our CapEx now, well, then that also means, AMD and Nvidia and other similar semiconductor companies, might see a hit. But nonetheless, let's jump into the fundamentals. So we have the total revenues here. I'm going to try to go through these a little bit quicker because this video wasn't really meant as much of like a really super in-depth analysis. When they come out with their new earnings report, that's when I want to get a little bit more in-depth. But nonetheless, taking a look at the total revenues, we have the projections here, right? This looks so juicy, and you can just see how they were going through this slump here. And then, look at this. Lisa Su took over this company, and she turned the whole thing around. And I would not bet against her at this point. Just look at this. It's insane that this stock was trading at like dollars not that long ago, right? And now look at it. But look at their projections. So you can see here, in December 2025, we'll see what they actually come out with, but expected to grow. And then, we're expected to grow a lot after that, right? I'm pretty confident that these expectations are not factoring in some of the new deals that they just signed. So I think we could see a little bit more of an acceleration of growth than what's being projected here. But even so, this looks good. All right, so next up we have the net income. And as you can tell, this has been a pretty bumpy ride. Just ups and downs, right, in the company. But we also have to remember that the data centers and, the chips that they've been making recently, that has been, the bright spot of AMD recently. And so here recently we can see a nice uptrend. And I think it's important to note as well that they have made a bunch of partnerships, and they also have made a bunch of investments as well, which, obviously could dink the net income, but, the hopes are that obviously those investments will pay off down the road. All right, so moving on, we have their total assets and liabilities, otherwise known as the balance sheet. Holy shit, dude. I mean, I don't even need to look at this slide anymore. It's good. It's really good. All right, we have the gross profit margins and cost of sales next. I wanted to bring up the cost of sales because this was something that just came out with Meta, right? That a lot of investors have been fearing. And it's like, hey, you're growing revenues a lot, but how much is your cost of sales growing along with it, right? Like, if your revenue is growing at 50%, but your cost of sales growing at 50%, well, guess what? The company's not really growing. That's not the case here, but you can see this, big cost of sales increase. I'll just be curious to see what this comes in at during their next earnings report. If this goes up, if it goes down, obviously if it goes up, but revenues go up even higher or gross profit margins go up even higher, nothing to be concerned about there. The next chart I have put up here is just the basic EPS. And this is the projection. This is what analysts are projecting. And this is juicy, man. This is huge, right? I mean, check this out. I mean, look here. It looks like 1.8 is where we're at right now. Expected to grow to 3.9 to 6 to 7.4 by the end of 2027. I mean, that's holy smokes. I mean, that's more than double, triple. I don't know what that is. That's a lot of growth though, right? And keep this in mind. I don't think this is pricing in these deals yet. And the reason why I say that is because, well, we don't know what they're expecting to make off of these deals, right? Like the OpenAI deal, like, yes, she said tens of billions of dollars this could generate over the next few years, right? Okay, like, I mean, is that 20 billion, 30 billion, 80 billion? Is that next year? Is that in 2027? Like, how long is it going to take? There's a lot of unknown, right? Going back, should you buy AMD before earnings? I mean, this all looks really good, right? I mean, AMD has a very, very bright future. And in the long term, I mean, yes, I think you could buy it now and, you look back a year from now and you'll be up. But in the short term, I don't know. I mean, could you have a better opportunity to buy the stock? That's a risk at the same time too, right? You don't buy anything, it rips up. Now you're like, oh my God, I should have. You buy it, it rips down, and you're like, God, I should have waited. Hey, it's a double-edged sword, right? Moving on, we have the operating margins and operating profits, right? This is great. Look at this, operating profits. Wow, like look how much that's been increasing, and like this is huge. It's just like your core business. That's awesome, right? I mean, that's like money that's just pretty consistently coming in, right? And then you have your operating margin. We look like we kind of bottomed out here, and now we're headed back up again, right? Again, where are we headed next, right? Is this going to continue up? I don't know. That's what we want to see when it comes to their next earnings report. We have free cash flow. Holy smokes. I mean, yeah. Look, I mean, this is where we're at right now. So this is not crazy at this point, right? But I guess where I said holy smokes is look what they're projecting. We're at what, 35 billion now, right? I believe that's what that is. Expected to pretty much more than double by the end of next year. And then almost, I mean, not double, but grow a lot after that. And once again, I don't think this is factoring in a lot of these new deals. All right, so next one, we have just their different segments, right? Their main segments that they make money from. And so you have your data centers, right? That's why we're seeing AMD, rally so much here of late. I mean, look at this. I mean, this is crazy growth, 50% year over year here, even more here. And the expectations is that this is just going to keep massively growing pretty much, right? And that's just their data center revenues, right? Then you have your gaming revenue, right? So again, this was interesting because look at the trend here is down, right? Not looking as hot there, but hey, did we bottom out here, right? That's another thing to keep our eyes on. Are we starting to turn the curve when it comes to their gaming revenue? That's to be seen still. Client revenue, we're seeing pretty nice growth on that too. Like this is awesome, right? And then you have your embedded revenue. Kind of headed down as well. Have a feeling that might have some, implications with their gaming revenue as well. Their embedded revenue is probably tied into that somehow, one way or another. But I mean, nonetheless, right? The bright spots here are their client revenues and their data centers, obviously. I mean, that's just where their money is right now. And then the downside and the not so bright side, right, is the clients, and the not so bright side is the gaming and even the embedded. I mean, we're kind of on a downtrend here, very close to break even. So be curious to see where that comes. But this is the funny thing. I mentioned that, but this is what investors are looking at. They want to see the data center growth. And so, I think it was one of these quarters where AMD came out. They beat everything. This was when the stock was in a slump. The stock rips up for a minute and then drops. And it was like a double beat. They raised their guidance, like everything. And what was it? Well, the data center, the one segment of the company, just didn't grow quite as fast as investors wanted, right? Just not as fast as they wanted. And so, again, I mean, it's just really hard to say, whether or not we should buy this company before. Because I'm not going to lie to you. I want to buy some shares, but I'm going to let you know at the end of the video what I'm doing. All right, moving on. The next slide that I wanted to look at real quick before we jump into the technicals, and that is just your forward price to earnings, right? This is one metric that I really like to look at. Again, sound like I'm beating a dead horse here, but this is hard to tell of what this is going to be. So right now, it looks like the company's a little overvalued based off of that, right? And so, we're looking here. We have, let's see, this is just, the past year or so where AMD has been trading. I guess you can see arguably that we were trading at a lot higher of a valuation, so that is one thing to consider. We had that huge dip, and then we obviously been rallying back up. And that's one thing to note, right? I mean, look, over here where we were trading at this high of a valuation, right? And the stock price was not even as high as it was now. And that just shows how fast they've been growing their revenues, right? So nonetheless, though, the one I really like to look at is a forward price to earnings. We're trading at a 50 right now. And to be honest, that's not too bad for a company like AMD with all, the growth prospects that they have. Now, with that being said, their current price to earnings is a 145. It's getting pretty hot, right? But I have to bring this up. Look at Palantir, right? If you want to play devil's advocate, yes, this stock could absolutely just keep ripping higher and higher and higher. And there could be anything that I'm talking about when it comes to the fundamentals could just be blown out the water. Where it's at that point, the stock's just doing its own thing. And it's just going to take a while for everything to catch up, right? That could happen. I mean, Palantir is a one-off. You don't see that often, right? But it can. But with that being said, let's just compare it to Nvidia. And granted, Nvidia's, almost $4 trillion, if it's not already now. I think it's $4 trillion. Pretty substantial, but hey, let's compare it. So right here, you can see that Nvidia is trading at a 35 forward price to earnings, okay? Where AMD is trading at a 50. So comparing these two, yes, it looks like AMD is a little overvalued, especially when you're like, whoa, I could just buy Nvidia, right? And that's a good point, right? Because a lot of people are like, man, is Nvidia overvalued? Like, this thing's ran up so much, like, do I really, want to buy it this high? I don't know. Look at the valuation. Based off the valuations, based off their growth, based off their sales, the company still looks fairly valued. But nonetheless, AMD, we are getting a little bit higher. You can see, we were trading at a 48 around here and, right around here. And, those are, although there's been times where we've peaked to about 60, it looks like, right? That seems to be the peak. And that's interesting. That's interesting to look at that because we are getting close to those peaks where, we see AMD reach these types of valuations and then it kind of, gets put back in check per se. But nonetheless, I thought this was pretty interesting. All right, so now that we got the fundamentals out of the way, let's look at the technicals, and I'm gonna let you know what I'm thinking. All right, so now that we got all the fundamentals out of the way, they all look good, right? I mean, everything looks really good for AMD. Based off of that, should you buy it before earnings? I mean, if I didn't see the stock price and I was looking at that, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, this thing's got plenty of growth potential, right? Awesome partnerships. It's like they're just in their beginning phases, really. With the new MI 400 chip coming out, that's going to be a banger, or should be. But again, when you look at the charts, and here I have the 4-hour pulled up, but let's zoom out a little bit more. All right, so now I have the daily chart pulled up. And man, like, in my opinion, when I see charts like this, it is so hard for me to buy it. And with that being said, I had a position in AMD down around 125, sold it for not that big of profits because I thought it was going to pull back, and it never did. I kept buying though, and I kept kind of riding this momentum up, and I kept buying the dip. And then you had this gap right here, right? That's that OpenAI deal. I actually had a position in around here again. I think I bought in on this dip right here, and I sold it off the news, right? I was like, wow, I just took that position. I was up pretty substantially on it. Again, we're getting close to this double top up here is how I felt, and I was like, it just didn't feel comfortable holding it. Nonetheless, the stock kept going up, right? And we actually broke out off no news, just based off of all the momentum of, these deals that have been coming through for AMD, right? And so zooming out this far, like, man, am I going to buy before earnings? In my sole opinion, I say no, okay? And the only reason why I say no is because look at this. I mean, it's just like, God, I have to believe that some of this good news has been priced in up here, right? That, they would just have to come out with some massive news to really make this stock go even higher. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not. I'm just saying that this stock is up over 210% in less than 200 days. Okay? Like, wow. I mean, we've seen a huge rally. So, I personally am praying that the stock falls during earnings. I will not be scared for whatever reason that it falls. I won't be scared. I'll be more than happy to buy the dip. Okay? But should you buy it before? Man, I mean, you tell me. I mean, we've seen it before where the stock has these huge runs and then big sells, huge run, big sell, huge run. I don't think we're getting one of these again. I honestly, I do not see that happening at all. But let's take a look at some of these levels, all right? Taking a look down here, in a perfect world, I would love to fill this gap and take a position around here. That's a huge decline though, 27%. It would have to pretty much blow earnings and then just be stuck in a slump for a few weeks, right? But I promise you, if it gets back and fills this gap anywhere under 200, I'm buying. Okay? I'm buying. That would be a gift. Realistically, let's zoom in a little bit more, right? So we can see some of these resistance levels. This is going to be where the stock falls next, right? And I think I actually just made a video going over the earnings for next week, and I briefly touched on this as well and went over these levels. But obviously, if you didn't see that video, here it is again. These are the levels, though, right? Scenario A, the stock just breaks out, goes higher. It just continues with its rocket ship up. Scenario B, we pull back to, previous resistance that now becomes new support. We test that level, we bounce higher, right? We come back, we pull back a little bit, and then we continue higher. Scenario C, a little bit deeper of a pullback down to these levels, close to this 200-day moving average here on the 4-hour, right? And then, in my opinion, what would be the best case scenario for me, right? Obviously, if you're an AMD shareholder, I'm so happy if this stock continues up for you guys. Like, I'm not here to bet against anybody. I'm here to help you make money, right? So nonetheless, though, if the stock comes back to this 200-day moving average in between the 200 and the 300, that's my big buy box, right? Like right here where this last support was, right? 185, couldn't break it, got rejected off it pretty high, and then broke right out above it, right? Again, that would be the best case scenario. Again, most gaps get filled. They don't have to get filled. Man, that gap on the daily looks huge. But again, I would love to see that gap get filled. That's what I would like to see. Is that going to happen, though? I don't know. And to be honest, I want to know your opinions in the comments. What do you think AMD is going to do? Obviously this is just for entertainment purposes only. I just want to provide as much information as I can for you guys just to help you make a better informed decision, right? Okay, so now the question, should you buy AMD before or after earnings? In my opinion, I would wait till after earnings, and that's just because I personally don't like to chase stocks. And taking a look at those charts as we just looked at, to me, it feels like I'm chasing. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Like, it's been a rocket ship up, and could it keep going up? Absolutely, it could. But we've also seen in the past that AMD can be very volatile, and when it gets bearish, it can get pretty bearish pretty quickly as well, right? As fast as it goes up, it can go down. In the long term, though, I have nothing to worry about AMD at all. So if you're someone that's like, hey, Jack, like I don't want to risk it, right? Like, I'm afraid that AMD is going to leave without me, right? The train's taking off without me. Hey, if you have fear of missing out and you have to do it, then this is what I would recommend. Let's say you're willing to allocate $10,000 to AMD. Go ahead and put $5,000 on it now, right? Wait till after earnings comes out. Digest the information. Obviously, if the stock goes up, guess what? You had a position, right? And then you can look at, maybe buying more on a pullback after you digest some of the information. Vice versa. Let's say the stock starts to decline. Well, if that happens, well, you could be happy because yes, you have a piece in AMD and you're going to be down in your position, but guess what? You get another $5,000 that you could start dollar cost averaging at even lower prices. Because if you're looking at AMD for a long-term trade, yeah, I mean, this is a no-brainer, right? You could buy it now, you could buy it next week, you could buy it whenever, right? You're probably still going to make money when it comes to a 2 or 3 year outlook. But I know there's a lot of people that want instant gratification, right? If you're one of those people, I say just wait, right? There's a lot of opportunities out in the market. AMD is just one of them. I do think it's one of the best ones. But I want to see what happens after earnings, right? Because there's a lot of unknown at this point, and I just wouldn't recommend chasing. But with that being said, that's all I have for you guys in this one. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you're still here, and you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this and liking this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.